Hi everybody, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim, the YouTube channel that's dedicated to all runners everywhere. I'm Tim and I upload new running videos every single week. And if you want to skip around in this video just to the parts that are of most interest to you, I've tried to make it as easy for you as possible to do that. So if you open the description, you'll see where I've laid out some chapters for you. All you have to do is click on the timestamp for the part of the video that you want to watch and it'll take you right there. Today, I'm taking a look at the Triumph 18 from Saucony, and this is a 50-mile shoe review, so we're going to take a close look to see how the shoe's been holding up over time, and we're going to talk more about the performance. When I first reviewed this shoe, there's a couple of things that I mentioned, and one of them was that I felt like the upper was a little bit warm underfoot. Well, now it's cooler weather here. In fact, it's been in the 30s for the last couple of times that I've had these shoes out on a run. So we're going to talk about that, see how they're doing in the colder winter months, and a whole lot more. But first, let's take a look and see what these shoes can do in action, and then when we get back, we'll talk about those things and, like I said, a whole lot more. So I had a fun run around my town. I went just about a little less than 3.5 miles. It was about an 8:09 minute mile pace. Now that was just a part of my workout for the week. And I've mentioned this before in other running videos, reviews lately, that I am training for a half marathon, and that was an easy run day for me. So it was a perfect shoe to take out for that purpose. And we'll talk about more of that when I get to the performance. But let's just dive right in and talk more about the shoe. Now it costs $150, so it's not inexpensive. And for a daily trainer, I think it might be even a little bit costly. You know, there are a lot of great daily trainers out there that run around that $115 to $130 range. And I would absolutely love this shoe at that price. Not that I don't enjoy it now, but $150 is just a little bit pricey. Let's talk about the weight of the shoe. It's a little bit heavy. You know, it weighs 11.1 ounces is the stated weight on their website. And I put it on my scales for a men's size 9, and it came in at 11.1 ounces or 315 grams. Now let's look at the upper on the shoe. And this is where we're really going to be looking at some of the durability issues. And I just want to talk to you about my experience in these as well. So it's worth noting that I have 65 miles on these shoes. And as we look at that upper as well as the midsole outsole for the durability, just something to keep in mind. Now, when we talk about the upper, Saucony describes it as a jacquard mesh upper, so I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, so I actually looked it up. But in essence, it's a way that they've woven the material together using a special loom, and you can see that it has lots of perforations up in that toe box. As we work our way around the shoe, you can see that they have their Saucony logo sprawled across the side of the shoe. When we get back to the heel counter, you can see that they have really kind of a plastic overlay or almost a clip back there for some durability and structure to that heel counter. But let's talk about that upper. When I first ran in this shoe back when it was in the summer months, I did note that it was hot underfoot, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing what it might feel like when it got cooler outside. And so a couple things I want to share with you. It is really comfortable in the cooler weather. I felt like my feet, at that 30-degree mark, they didn't get cold at all. But what I do want to note is that earlier in the week, I had gone out on a 5.5-mile run. It was another easy run for me, as part of my workout schedule. And it was slightly snowing. It wasn't coming down hard at all. But by the time I finished that run, I felt like they should have changed the name from the Saucony Triumph 18 to the Saucony Triumph 18 because my feet were sopping wet. It was almost ridiculous. By the time I got home, I could feel the squish in the shoe. So, it's not waterproof by any stretch, but it is warm underfoot. So just know that, if you're going to take these out and it happens to be, maybe raining or, snowing like it was in my case, you can expect to have wet feet by the time you get done. So I was thankful that the next day on my workout schedule I was doing some speed work, so I was going to be running in a different shoe anyway, so I had an extra day for those to dry out. And I was also thankful to have that removable insole. And you guys know, if you've seen my running shoe reviews, any of them in the past, I've probably mentioned how much I appreciate having those removable insoles, and this is exactly why. Because I was able to pull that out and just let them air dry this time. But I had that extra day to do that, and they seemed to dry a little faster having that insole out of the shoe. At least the insole dried a little bit faster. And I do love that Comfort Fit insole, by the way. It is very comfortable underfoot. I enjoy that. So let's talk about, the eyelet chain now. It's really nothing crazy going on here. It's a basic eyelet chain. They've got some structure or some plastic overlays around the eyelets just to give it some extra durability, as well as on the inside cage of the shoe. But most notable about the eyelet chain, I think, is the laces rather than the eyelets themselves. And they give you the puffy lace. This shoe is all about luxury. Everywhere on the shoe, that jacquard material is thicker. It's more plush. It gives a nice, comfortable feel across that midfoot. It really is very luxurious feeling underfoot. And the laces are no different. But what was interesting is, I kind of did a little bit of a test. So that 3.5-mile run that you saw in the run sequence, rather than doing a double knot in the lace, I purposely just went with a single knot because I wanted to see how well it stayed tied. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that strategy for anyone else. I always double knot my shoes just because the worst thing that could happen to you is you're out trucking along and have your shoe come untied and have you trip up, take a fall, and get injured. We don't want that to happen. But I was curious to see if these shoes would stay tied like I had felt like they were all along. And sure enough, they did. I didn't have any issues with them coming untied at all. Unlike some of the other Saucony laces that I have in other shoes in the Endorphin series, so both the Pro and the Speed, those laces come untied all the darn time. Even when I double knot them, that first knot does seem to come untied by the time I get done running. So in this case, the puffy lace, love it for having it stay tied. I didn't have any issues with that at all. The tongue is a semi-gusseted tongue. It's heavily padded, which adds to the warmth of the feel of the shoe underfoot. But there's a lot of comfort there. I enjoyed the feel. I absolutely like that luxurious feel of this shoe. I wish it was a little bit lighter. I think 11.1 ounces is a little bit heavy. So it would be nice to be able to keep some of the luxury but reduce a little bit of the weight. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in the performance section. It has lots of padding around the heel collar and the heel tab of the shoe, more than you need, I think. But again, it's comfortable. I didn't have any issues with it rubbing. Sometimes I do get shoes that will rub up around my heel area, around my ankle especially, and I didn't have that issue with these at all. Very comfortable. So let's now take a look at the heel counter of the shoe. And there's a lot of structure here. They have that big plastic heavy overlay around that area, and we'll give it the pinch test. And you can see that, that darn thing's not moving. Whether you try to pinch it together or fold it in onto itself, there is just, a lot of structure there that gives it a tremendous amount of stability. And, when I talk about stability, if you've seen my reviews, you know that typically I'm talking about pronation and not that feeling of that foam midsole underfoot being a little bit wobbly, but rather, again, pronation. Lots of stability in the Triumph 18. Love that. Let's look at the midsole. It's got their PWRRUN Plus midsole material here, and it's awesome. Yeah, I don't know, a better word to describe it. Very springy, bouncy, pretty natural feeling underfoot. It has 32.5 millimeter stack height in the heel and a 24.5 millimeter in the forefoot. It has that 8 millimeter drop. That was about right for me. I didn't feel like my heel was hitting first. Sometimes I get a big, tall, or a big offset, 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, sometimes even. I can kind of feel like my heel is hitting more first than I would like it to for me. But I didn't have that at all here. It felt really comfortable, that 8 millimeter offset. I enjoyed that feeling when I was out running. Now you'll also notice that the geometry of the midsole, now that was designed in a way by Saucony to give you the most energy return, or to give you a snappy ride underfoot. And I agree. One of the things that surprised me most about this shoe is when I was out on my workout, I was intending to run between a 9:30 minute mile. And, I don't typically look at my Garmin watch that often when I'm out on an easy run, because I kind of can tell about how, what my pace is and where I need to be. And when I finished that run, I was surprised that I came in at an 8:09 minute mile pace. It didn't feel that way. So, I felt like, I was going at around a 9-minute mile pace. So, I guess I would liken it to, being in a luxury car, going down the highway, before you know it, you look down at the speedometer and you're going way faster than you thought you were, just because the ride is just so smooth that you kind of lose track of that speed. And that's kind of what it felt like. There are other shoes that I've had a similar experience, that it was deceivingly quicker than I thought it was going to be. And I'm thinking of the Hoka Elevon. I had that same type of experience when I first ran in that shoe. I didn't feel like I was going as fast as I was, because it didn't take as much energy as I thought it was going to. So for, a shoe that weighs, 11.1 ounces, it's surprisingly quick underfoot. The other thing I want to note, though, is that 11.1 ounces, when we're talking about performance, does come into play. It was fine at that 3.5 mile mark, for that run sequence, or that workout. But I have had this shoe out on longer runs, and when I get to about 5 miles into my workout, that's when that 11 ounces starts to come into play, and my legs do feel a little more tired than they do when I'm in a lighter shoe. So just something to note. If you're not out trying to set a quick pace, you're looking for a nice, long, easy run shoe that you can run in, it's going to give you a lot of comfort, then I think the performance of that PWRRUN Plus midsole is just fantastic, and I think it's a good choice, even if the shoe, or even though the shoe weighs a little over 11 ounces. Now let's flip the shoe over and we'll take a look at the outsole. And again, we're going to be looking at the durability. Oh, and before we move on, though, as we zoomed in and took a real close look at that midsole, there was really, I didn't see any marks of compression in that midsole foam. So even though it's soft after 65 miles, it still feels really springy. So just as much so from the first day that I ran it, up until this last time before I did this review for you. Now let's flip the show over and we'll take a look at that outsole material, and they've got plenty of rubber, around the heel and really from that midfoot all the way up through your toe. And as I zoom in here, you can see that there really aren't any signs of wear. I have seen, and I will make this note, on Saucony's website, where at least one reviewer or one person giving their thoughts on the shoe noted that they felt like that carbon rubber outsole material wore down prematurely. Now, again, I have 65 miles on these shoes, and I don't see any signs of wear at all. So I think experiences can differ. I am a lighter runner, and sometimes that does play a role. But at this point, I think that outsole rubber material is holding up fantastically well. And as we talk about performance with that outsole, that 5.5 mile run that I talked about where my feet just got soaking wet, there was a winter advisory that day. And part of that was not so much because of heavy snowfall, but because of the concern that the roads were going to get icy. And I ran on sidewalks and pavement solely for that run. And I can tell you that it stuck pretty well to the road. I didn't feel like I was sliding around. Now it hadn't froze yet, but it was still wet, and I didn't feel unsafe at all. So I think that the outsole, that outsole rubber did a pretty terrific job of keeping me stuck to the road and making me feel secure when I was out running. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I really enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.